We are back here on the We All Serve podcast. Welcome, one and all. I can't believe it's already Tuesday evening, and we had a couple of days off, Angel, but we're back for yet another awesome conversation. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm really, really good. I mean, like you said, I had a couple days off, and it seems like I didn't have any time off. I was like, I just can't believe how tired I am because I'm chronologically sophisticated, and it just takes longer to get out of bed. And you roll, and you go downstairs, and it sounds like things are cracking, like you're the Tin Man or something.
Well, you've got to oil. That's Tina's
Gotta get
job.
some
She's
oil.
got to, yeah, get
Yeah.
some oil. Get some
Yep.
oil in your system. That's good. That's good stuff. Well, I'm excited for our conversation today. But before we get there, I was just looking at the calendar and we've got Veterans Day coming up. I just noticed that.
We do, and there's so many organizations, so many companies that are doing different things to acknowledge Veterans Day and the contributions and sacrifices that veterans have made, and it's just really exciting to see that. But ultimately, hire them, give them jobs, give them careers that, and don't hire them for being cheap labor. Hire them for all the things and the soft skills that they bring. If we have one message, it's hire them to do things that they love doing, and they will be an instant value to your company.
So it's funny. Today, I was just telling you offline that I spent some time with a senior military leader today, and he said something. He said it in a different context, but I'm thinking about it now. He said, "Listen, if you take care of a service members," he says the three F's, and I was like, "Oh, what are you going to say, sir?" And he said, "No, food, family, and funds. Take care of those three things, and those soldiers, sailors, airmen, marine, they will bend over backwards and take care of you. But don't mess with the food, family, or funds." And
Yep. You know
so,
who's doing a lot of that is Dan and Deb Kleppel, the
oh my
admiral and his wife.
goodness.
I talked to her this morning. It was fantastic, and all the things they're doing for spouses and family members, and they're talking about the sub work with the transgender, just all these incredible employment opportunities. Just being around them excites me.
Yeah, that was an awesome conversation. We've had so
Mhm.
many awesome conversations, so that's a good reminder. Shameless plug. Make sure you get on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Make sure you like, subscribe, rate, and review and share on this podcast wherever you may find it, and you will find it everywhere. Obviously, we're streaming this conversation now, and it's always fun. You get to watch, but if you can't tune in right now, we do have the opportunity that you can listen to it later, and we have had over 50 conversations over the past year and a half or so, actually. So
Yeah, it's been a lot.
it has
And
been a
I go
lot.
back and I listen to some of them. I'm like, oh wow, that guy's incredible. Oh man, that story. And then sometimes I just get kind of moved and choked up, and I'm like, okay, we need to change the channel. This is too much.
It's good stuff. Well,
But
I'm excited for, yeah,
today's guest, oh my gosh, we finally have Juliana on here, and just to discuss her journey and where she's at now and what she's working on. She just really epitomizes what it is to serve and give back. So let's bring her on in, and Shalom, go ahead and read her resume or bio or whatever the heck you want to read.
sure. And her video just disappeared, so I'm going to remove it for a second, and then she'll show back up. That's interesting. So, Juliana, I am very excited to have this conversation. This Juliana is a Marine Corps veteran. She was in for 16 years, which is an odd number, and we'll talk some more about that. Most people don't do 16 years. She was deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan during her military career and spent 5 years providing holistic support to wounded, ill, and injured Marines recovering at the Wounded Warrior Battalion in San Diego. With over 20 years of experience working with and serving the veteran population, she has a deep understanding of the veterans community's needs and what it takes to support them through the transition back from the military into the civilian world. But since leaving active duty, I believe in 2011, Juliana has committed her career to supporting veteran brothers and sisters through, again, as you said, that successful transitions. She served on several VSO board of directors and founded a public benefit corporation, which we are going to talk about.
What's a
She
VSO?
VSO Veterans Service Organization. Sorry, I should never use acronyms. My wife said to me the other day. She said she thinks that when she hears me on a military conversation, she understands about 5% of what I said. So
That much, huh?
that much I know. But the Juliana is involved in so many nonprofits, and I know the work of Sabe is supporting so many great organizations. So, without further ado, let me bring her in. Her video is back, so there we go. Juliana Mercer, welcome
Calling it a win.
to We All Serve. You're muted.
Hello,
There we
thank
go.
you. Good to be here.
We are redefining technical challenges today.
Angel, take it away.
Well, Juliana, we had such a great conversation a few weeks ago, and what we find out is the Veteran Service Organization and Support Circle is so large, but it's also so small. And you know who the good people are that are doing things. You know, we talked about Jim Byrne. We talked about how you indirectly taught me how to love really good tequila with Eli Abbott, who went to school with me, just a great guy, great Marine. And we're just so grateful to have you here and talk about some of the things you've done in your journey. And I'm going to start out with let's talk about Sabe. I'm so excited about Sabe because being a Latino, I know. I'm like, what do I want to know? So what do I want to know about Sabe?
So Sabe is Spanish for know, K-N-O-W. It is an ode to Maria Sabina. She is the Mexican healer that introduced magic mushrooms or psilocybin to the Western world back in the late 50s, early 60s. And I believe that we have the answers that we need inside of us, all the things that we're seeking. Our authentic self really knows the answers to those questions, and connecting to your inner knowing and your authentic self is what's going to get you to get to that next level and really be able to follow your intuition and trust yourself and really find happiness and joy. So Sabe is a nod to Maria Sabina, but also a tribute to your own self and the answers that you have inside of you.
That's amazing. When I hear psychedelics, and it scares me. I get scared, and then maybe it's because of everything I heard of as a child. Maybe it's because I saw my uncle at a Grateful Dead concert, and it was just not very attractive. It's a lot of things there, and you see the after school specials. Talk to me about what brought you into psychedelics and the medicinal value and the healing properties that really have you kind of pioneering and doing legislative work. And let's talk about the legislative work as well.
Yeah, so I was also Dare Generation, was terrified of any sort of drug. Didn't really even know what a psychedelic was. I just knew all of those things were bad. Don't do it. Just say no. Your brain on drugs is an egg in a frying pan. All of those things. And I, thankfully, after I exited the military and started understanding what these substances were, got a little bit better of an understanding and an education that, okay, I'm not gonna eat someone's face off if I use one of these substances, and I'm not gonna jump off of a building. So thankfully, I got a little bit of an education. My first time trying one of these substances was recreational. I like Rick Doblin. He's the founder of MAPS. MAPS is the organization that has been working with veterans and MDMA and has them at phase 3 clinical trials and has had really good results with MDMA. Their last trial showed 67% effectiveness in curing treatment-resistant post-traumatic stress.
Curing. That's curing. Wow.
It's gone. And there's no pharmaceutical that even comes close. Pharmaceuticals are about 20% effective. But I got off on a tangent. So Rick Doblin, founder of MAPS, calls it a celebratory experience, not a recreational experience, because he believes that there's these substances can be used recreationally and not be villainized. So my first celebratory experience with MDMA, I had no idea what I was getting into. I got to a place where I got a glimpse of that authentic self, and I got a glimpse of what it felt like to be whole and healed. And that's kind of what set me off on questioning, what is this? And why did I feel that way? And why did I get to a point where I met my authentic self and like, what's going on? Where's the disconnect? So I started doing research. I came across an organization called H.O.P.E Project. It was founded by an Army Ranger, Jesse Gould. He found ayahuasca through his own journey. He had gone through the VA system. tried everything and nothing worked. And he was at his wit's end, found ayahuasca, went down to the jungles of Peru, went through ceremonies and was healed, and came back and was like, I need to share this with my brothers and sisters. And so he founded Heroic Hearts Project. A few years after he founded it, I met him through the small veteran world, and went down to Costa Rica myself and did ayahuasca journey myself. And that journey really opened the door to the healing that happened subsequently. So I went down with 6 other veterans, and really started on a path of understanding why I was where I was, and what I needed to do to heal that. And I knew right away that this was something that we were onto something, and this was something that I hadn't seen in the 20 years that I working with veterans. I hadn't seen anything that worked the way that these psychedelics worked. So that was the beginning of my journey. After ayahuasca, I did Psilocybin Therapy, which was probably the most pivotal experience of my life. It was about 18 years after, post 9/11. I graduated boot camp a week before 9/11. So at that time, our country had been at war for 18 years. And I didn't realize that I had collected 18 years worth of grief and trauma. And I found myself in a place where I wasn't sad, but I wasn't happy. I had a purposeful job, but I didn't feel like I had purpose. And I knew something was wrong because of all the work that I'd done up until that point and all the people that I
Which is otherwise very fulfilling. I mean, yeah, right. But you just couldn't get that feeling, right?
Yeah, I was helping people, and I kind of didn't even care. I was like, well, I'm just going through the motions, and at least I'm doing something. Like, logically, I knew I was doing something good. Logically, I knew I was helping people, but I felt so empty and felt like I was aimless. And I didn't know why, because that doesn't make sense. I'm doing good work, doesn't make sense. So through this work, I realized that, between Iraq and Afghanistan and spending 5 years seeing the direct cost of war at the hospital, working with my wounded Marines, I collected some things and collected some trauma. And instead of dealing with it, I did something that a lot of veterans do. I put it away, put it in a box. I was like, I'll deal with this later. I have to keep, the mission's important. I have to keep working. I have to keep taking care of my Marines. And next thing I know, 18 years later, the boxes are all filled up to here. And I have no access to Juliana anymore. And so one night with psilocybin, which is magic mushrooms, all of those boxes were unpacked and disappeared. And I was full of love and joy again. And I haven't been the same since. And I've just been so light and in touch with myself. I've been able to connect to my values and to what I really want and what's really important to me. And it happened in just one night worth of psilocybin therapy. So That said, I feel an obligation to share that and to get access to our brothers and sisters that need healing.
That's fantastic. And I always think, and sorry, Shalom, I'm going to jump in for just 1 second. I always think of, you take the MDMA or the psilocybin or mushrooms, and eventually you have this period or the way I process it, you have this period, you feel euphoric or whatever's going on, and then it wears off. Now, what you're describing to me is you've had this guided journey with people that are professionals. It's like not just, hey, let me go pop this and roll out. No, this is very intentional. This is very orchestrated journey to healing, where you actually have a tangible outcome upon completion. You're like, okay, wow, where did that stuff go? It's gone, it's lost, and I'm open heart surgery, whatever. I mean, seriously.
Yeah. So when you're using any psychedelic for therapeutic use, You go into it with intention. So there's preparation that's involved. I worked with a coach that helped me work through what my intentions were for my ceremonies. And intention is basically what you want to get out of it. So why are you going into this ceremony, first of all, and what are your intentions what are you going to get out of it? And so that helps you to have a journey that's purposeful. So you go in and you're not just, it's not just a celebratory use. You're not just going in and having fun. You're taking a much larger dose than you would for just to have fun. Taking a pretty big dose, and that's opening you up and getting you to a place where you're able to connect to your greater consciousness, and that can be really scary, but it can also be really beautiful. And both the scary and the beautiful, there's a lot of lessons in that.
Great.
Wow. Amazing. An amazing journey. So I want to actually go back, as I always do, to the beginning of that journey. We've talked a little bit about your 16 years in the Marine Corps, and obviously it's changed your life. It's changed your life. And I know that you, as you keep saying, you're committed to helping our brothers and sisters. So let's go all the way back to that time that you walked into a recruiter's office. You decided to join the Marine Corps. I don't know why you walked past the Army recruiter's office, but we'll leave that for another conversation.
Where do I start? That's an entire episode devoted to articulating that.
Yeah. Well, Juliana, I mean, tell us a little bit about that experience and your family, and were they supportive of that decision?
Oh boy. Yeah. So I was in a really small town in Arizona, and all the recruiting offices were in a strip mall. So it was Army, Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps in a row. I was a senior. My girlfriends and I all had sports scholarships. We were all going to go to college, play sports, pay for college with sports. And I was just curious when I was in this strip mall, and I was bored, and I went into the offices, and I went down the row of offices, and I heard some cool things, but nothing that made me want to stay in the office longer or even consider joining. The Marine Corps office was the last office. I had no idea what a Marine was. There was a dress blues uniform in the window. And I was like, well, I don't know what this is, but I have already talked to these other people. Might as well talk to these guys. I walked in.
Let me just pause you there. If you saw the Space Force dress uniform, let's just put it out there. You'd probably pick the Space Force.
Is there a uniform already?
Oh, you didn't see?
Is it a Stay Puft marshmallow suit?
Okay, I'm going to find it. I'm going to see if I could share my screen in a moment. But go ahead, Juliana. Keep going.
So I walked into the Marine Corps office, and aside from being the best salesman out of all the recruiters, when they told me what a Marine was, it was everything that I wanted to be. And it resonated with everything inside of me. And I signed my life away right there and then. And without asking for permission from my parents, without thinking twice about my track scholarship, and then went home, and my parents were not super stoked about it. But eventually they became, my biggest supporters. And, but yeah, they were not thrilled when I told them I joined the Marine Corps.
Yeah. Wow. What a journey. So you came in, you went in, I'm assuming active duty?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll ask this question and let it go where it might lead, but tell us about your best friend or greatest mentor during your time in service.
Oh man, there's a lot. It's funny. I was looking, somebody had asked me for some photos of me in the military, and I was going through old photos, and I actually found one when I got promoted to staff sergeant, and Eli pinned me. And I was also in that same photo was one of my best friends who was a Marine captain. She was really a great mentor to me. And then my favorite gunnery sergeant was also there. I think he also pinned the other side. And
So it was Gunny and Eli?
yeah, Eli was already a civilian, and then my gunny was there, and then my captain, who, you know, they were all like family, and really had helped me be who I was at that time, and really taught me some really valuable lessons. That one gunny in particular taught me this one lesson that I will never forget and carry with me. I think I had asked for permission to take like a day off, a day of leave, so that I can go take care of something personal. And he pretty much, he yelled at me and was like, "Don't ever ask me to do that again." And I was like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "You always take care of you. I don't care if it's on the Marine Corps time." He's like, "You always take care of number one first, because the Marine Corps, nobody else is ever going to put you as number one. So you put yourself first, and don't ever ask for a day off again. Just go take care of your shit."
So what was your job? What was your job in the Marine Corps?
I did a couple things. So when I was deployed, I was in civil affairs. I think the Army has civil affairs, and the Marine Corps. We're the only two branches that actually have that.
38 series.
Yeah. So civil affairs, for those who don't know, we work with the governance of the communities in which we're deployed. We're the hearts and minds folks. We do everything from reparations to helping build infrastructure and working with the communities and helping them with all kinds of different things.
So you guys kind of get involved with province reconstruction teams and rebuilding the villages and setting up education systems and let them know where the resources are, and we're here to help and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that micro grants for women to start small businesses, all kinds of things. Wow. I did. There was so many different projects, and I feel like I was lucky because I got to see a side of war that not a lot of people got to see, and that was, you know, us trying to do right by the people. But we also, you know, we were doing that to have good relationships with them and get intelligence as well. So, but I did that I did that in Iraq and Afghanistan. And between those two deployments was the 5 years that I spent at the Naval Hospital working with our wounded.
Amazing.
Yeah, so you worked at Balboa. Was that the C5 unit or something like that? Was the folks that came back that were injured and they had to rehabilitate and all those kind of things, right? Over at Balboa?
Yeah, C5 was the name of the medical unit that provided the medical care. I was part of the non-medical team. So C5 was all Navy, and I was part of the non-medical Marine Corps liaison team. My job was, I wore a lot of different hats while I was there, but a big part of my job was to be the liaison between all the different nonprofits and community members that wanted to support our wounded. So I coordinated everything from, you know, sending the guys to baseball and football games, to fly fishing and getting them out, like starting programs where we would do adaptive surf, you know, music and art, like every kind of anything that you could think of that my Marines were interested in, I would figure out a way to get them involved in it so they could start healing and figuring out how to live life with their injury.
Wow. Talk about a lasting impact and thinking about that you didn't feel like it was going towards something. It didn't fill you and having to hold that stuff inside but I wonder what drove you to actually have that first experience with psychedelics and like you just kind of up and go, I'm gonna try this. And then, or did you say there's a healing property on this?
Yeah, I had no idea. I knew that MDMA opened you up, made you more empathetic. It's called you know, in the medicine world, we call it heart medicine, because it opens you up and opens up your heart and connects you to other people, heightens your empathy and compassion.
Lowers your ego. I heard lowers your ego.
I think, yeah, all of the psychedelics will do that. So I didn't know that having that experience was going to change my life. I didn't know that it was going to be therapeutic. It literally, like, I was at a music festival and my friends were like, stop, this isn't going to kill you. You're really going to enjoy it. And so I finally gave in. This was like after probably a couple years of like prodding. I finally gave in, and I remember like standing there and just like literally like connecting to a higher power and like just being opened up to a way in a way that was familiar to me. And that familiarity was from 20 years prior.
Who you used to be.
Yeah.
I watched a special. It's called, I think it was on Netflix. It's called The Business of Drugs, and they go through the MDMA, how MDMA was created by about, in 1950s, and then a biochemist redid it with his wife, 86-year-old wife. And basically what they talked about was it was criminalized because it was capturing market share on antidepressants. So the lobbyists went and said, hey, this stuff is clearly, bad and all this other stuff. And it was originally used for marriage counseling, I believe, is what it was used for. But they criminalized it, and now it's coming back. And I'd like to talk about the legislative piece and the work you're doing with legislation to get some of these things identified as legitimate, authentic medicine for service members with disabilities. And that's what I call them, disabilities, because if you have to carry around this anchor, Navy guy, gotta go to that. If you have to carry this around with you, it just keeps you from your potential and keeps you from joy and from having successful relationships. I mean, I don't know about you, but my relationship went to pot. I mean, for years because I couldn't figure stuff out. And yeah, pot was. I said pot. That's funny. No, seriously, it's very hard to have those relationships when you have all this stuff holding you down. It's how do I say this? Break glass in case of emergency, and everything is catastrophic or good, really, really good, or catastrophic. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about that legislation piece.
Yeah. So this last year, California. There was a bill, it's SB 519. The bill was working its way through the Senate, the Congress, and the Assembly floor. And it made it all the way through to the very last Assembly member. And so I was working with H.O.P.E Project as part of the lobbying efforts. And we were talking to Congress members, we were talking to senators, we were talking to Assembly persons, and sharing our stories of healing and sharing the stories of other veterans and also the science behind it and the dire need of something that works. We're still losing 22 a day. That number hasn't changed. And that number, how long have we been hearing that number? And how long have we been trying to do something about it? It hasn't changed. And we have these substances that were demonized by the war on drugs, that were banned for no scientific reason, and we don't have. They've been proven to be helpful in treating and curing the things that are ailing us, and we don't have access to them because of the war on drugs. And that's a whole nother monster to talk about, but. The decrim efforts in California were essentially to give adults access to these psychedelics so that they could use them therapeutically. All of these substances are less dangerous for you, like by probably, I think, at least 20 times less dangerous for you than alcohol are. They're less harmful, and the negative effects are much less bad than alcohol is, and alcohol is legal.
Right. And when I think about the data behind that, I think about percentages, right? So we have 100 veterans, right? If they take this stuff, if 60 of them take this, or 100 take it, 60% of them, 60 veterans will not be depressed and commit suicide.
67%.
You can't argue with those. Excuse me, 67, closer to 70%. We'll go one higher. So 67 of those veterans will not be targets for suicide. How do you argue with those numbers? I don't know. What do you think, Shalom?
I mean, I live it front and center right now. I see right now, I've had conversations. I'm on an active duty Army installation, and whenever I see anybody with a combat patch, I have conversations about what they've experienced over the past few weeks in talking about the withdrawal from Afghanistan, and it's interesting watching how people that are currently in uniform cope, and then watching how people that are out of the uniform are coping. And I sometimes wonder who has access to more resources. And I don't have the answer. I really don't have the answer. The folks that are in uniform, obviously, there are limitations in terms of what you are able to. Angel, there's a light shining at you.
I know, it's awful. All right, we're good.
But there's no question. I mean, in my short time in the Army, I've already dealt with folks in my unit that have taken their own lives or have tried to take their own lives. And I wish we could crack the code. I wish we could crack the code. And I think, I have a lot of thoughts on the matter. And I think, Juliana, I mean, God bless you for what you're doing, for not just through Sabe, but just in general, through everything you do. I know you're committed to the cause. And on that, I want to go back to talking about your journey. When did you decide to leave? Tell us about you talked about coming in. Let's talk about leaving.
Yeah, I left Balboa in 2010. Balboa is a naval hospital. Went straight to Afghanistan and spent a year there. The year that we were there, so it was all of 2010 into 11. The year that we were there was the bloodiest year that the Marine Corps had since Vietnam. So we suffered a lot of casualties. I lost track of how many ramp ceremonies I went to, and like how many folks I talked to about what it was going to be like at the Naval Hospital when they were getting treated for their missing limbs and their brain injuries. And when I got there, I went straight from the hospital. And when I got there, I experienced something that was really wild. I started hallucinating and thinking that my wounded Marines were in Afghanistan, and I'd see them from far away, and I'd be like, "What are you doing here? Oh my God!" And I'd start running towards them, and it wasn't them. It was just a Marine, but I was having these crazy hallucinations, thinking that my Marines were there, and having these panic attacks that no, you can't be here. You got to go get better. And then I would also see really young Marines
during daytime when you're awake. You're having these visions and stuff. And this is before you even did any kind of hallucinogenics or anything. This is just day. Yeah. This is a Tuesday.
This is my own. This is a Tuesday, walking down Camp Leatherneck with a pistol on my leg and a rifle across my body, in uniform in Afghanistan. And I'm seeing these young kids go outside of the wire, and I'm just getting so upset and almost paralyzed with anxiety, because I don't want them to go outside of the wire. And I'm like, your mom may never see you again, and you may come back with no limbs. And so I have all of these things because for 5 years I was working with people coming back. And so I knew, okay, I need to get help. So I thankfully, I knew what to do because I had been working in the hospital and had been dealing with the type of stuff. So I went to the medics and was like, I'm freaking out, man. And they're like, oh, that's normal. It's called caregiver fatigue. And so I talked to someone out there and just kind of held after they told me it was normal, I was like, all right, I just got to hold my stuff together and make it through this year. And that was the beginning of that year. And so that year, the bloodiest year that we'd had, I came home and I was just done. And so I dropped into the reserve, and that's when I got into the nonprofit space. And worked with different organizations because of the work that I had done in the hospital. And I was helping my injured Marines transition into civilian life. I had a lot of experience and a lot of contacts in the corporate world and in the community to continue helping veterans transition successfully. So I started doing that, and was, working with several different organizations and was doing really purposeful work. And for a really long time, I was really happy. And then so that was 2011. And then about, 2016-ish, I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what it was. And I couldn't place my finger on it because I've seen people that are, really dealing with stuff. And I've seen people that need help. And I wasn't that person. And I also, logically was I have purposeful work, I have a job, I have a roof over my head. There's no reason that I should be feeling this way. So it just didn't make sense. And I realize now that I didn't give myself credit for all of the trauma that I had been through, for all of the trauma that I had collected, and also for everything that I had given to others to help them. And that's part of the healing journey, was recognizing that even though I didn't lose a limb, even though, all of the different things that didn't happen to me, there was still a lot of trauma that did happen, and that I had to give myself credit for and allow myself to recognize that there were things that I did go through. And that was the hard part of the process.
Yeah. You know what? I just think about it. I think we all do this thing that, well, I'm not missing a limb, I'm not missing a heart, I'm not missing, so it must not be that bad. And you start rationalizing and devaluing your injuries and what you're carrying around with you. I think we all kind of do that. Did you go through that?
Yeah, a little bit. I don't know that I did it consciously. I did it subconsciously. It's funny, when I was working with Team RWB, Team Red, White, and Blue, we had one of the talks that we would have with our members was, don't one down yourself. It's the opposite of one upping. It's
sure.
Don't one down yourself and be oh, great. Well, I'm not worthy, or I'm not as good, or I don't deserve. So not one downing yourself is not comparing your experience to other people's experiences.
Great. I just want to wrap up with one last thing, if I could, Shalom. With Sabe, tell me about the kind of person that would come to Sabe and seek either to sponsor or to be an advocate or to get treatment. Tell us about that, what that person looks like.
Yeah, so Sabe hosts plant medicine retreats right now in Mexico. And anybody that is looking to expand their consciousness, work on their meditation, get in touch with their inner self, is somebody that would benefit from our retreats. And also anyone that's looking to heal past traumas. Right now, we're working with psilocybin and 5-MeO-DMT, and we'll be working with ayahuasca down the road. But anybody that's looking to have guided, purposeful experiences with psychedelics would be good candidates for a Sabe journey. And then in terms of supporting the organizations that I support, Heroic Hearts Project, as I mentioned, connects veterans to ayahuasca. That's one of the organizations that proceeds go to. And the other organization is the H.O.P.E Project. This is a SEAL wife whose husband went down to Mexico and had healing from ibogaine, and with one of the organizations called The Mission Within, and also had her own psychedelic healing because the spouses are forgotten, and they've had, they've dealt with the trauma of the trauma, and they've been the ones at home and just have been dealing with so much. And so H.O.P.E Project focuses on the spouses, Gold Star families, and women veterans. So I support both of those organizations and the mission within as well.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And again, thank you for continuing to serve. 16 years in uniform, and obviously now continuing to support our brothers and sisters through Sabe. And I know your website is coming soon. We're going to put here a link so folks can learn more. But also, again, all of those organizations you just mentioned, and I can't wait to continue to follow it. And I know that you are building a movement and continuing to serve on so many levels. So, Juliana Mercer, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. And any veteran out there, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me.
That's awesome.
Sounds good. Thank you again, Juliana. We loved having you on here, and I'm so amped.
That's awesome conversation. And just real quick before we go, next week we'll be back again with another conversation, continuing talks with leaders, folks talking about their time in uniform, talking about how they continue to serve. So make sure you don't miss an episode by subscribing, rate, review, and share. It makes it easier for people to find the podcast. And with that, Juliana, thank you again. Angel, good to see you, and I can't wait for our next episode.
Sounds great.